The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly is brought to you by HIMS. HIMS is changing healthcare by providing access to affordable and discreet sexual health treatments. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/blind. That's HIMS.com/blind for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/blind. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Rejection is never easy, especially when it comes to the H-1B visa lottery. Fortunately, our friends at MobSquad have a solution to help you stay in North America, eliminate U.S. work visa issues for good, and continue supporting your current company. MobSquad can secure work permits and help you and your family move to Canada in just 4 weeks. Get in touch with MobSquad to learn more at mobsquad.io/blindambition. That's mobsquad.io/blindambition. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. It's your friend Rick from Blind, and today I'm going to introduce you all to Monty Fowler, who's the Vice President of Revenue Strategy and Enablement at Kentik. He's responsible for the go-to-market strategy and enablement for the revenue organization there. He's a sales and marketing leader and entrepreneur with more than 30 years in technology sales, marketing, and business development experience. His career spanned industries as diverse as telecommunications, consulting, enterprise software, the Internet of Things, and services. Network professionals turn to Kentik to plan, run, and fix any network, relying on the platform's infinite granularity, AI-driven insights, and fast search. Kentik makes sense of network, infrastructure, cloud, host and container flow, internet routing, performance tests, and network metrics. Thanks for coming on the show, Monty.
You're welcome, Rick. And man, you made me sound and Kentik even better. Wow.
Fantastic. He's a good wingman, right?
Fantastic.
Well, I won't quit my day job as a PR person then. Can you walk us through your career, Monty?
Oh my gosh. So I started out back in the early 90s. I was actually running a little advertising business out of my house. And a good friend of mine was a recruiter. And he used to send me on interviews when he didn't have a candidate for a particular position, because I used to be in drama club when I was in high school, so I could play the part really well. And, recruiters, especially back in the day, if you couldn't have somebody show up, they just wouldn't call you anymore, right? So he would be like, hey, man, I don't have anybody for this. Can you go meet with this guy? Sure. What's the job? Oh, it's this. So I went on one of these one day, and it was for a network engineer technician role. And I had no idea. I mean, I had a Macintosh at home, with AOL connectivity. So I went to this interview, hit it off with the guy. He seemed like a really, sharp dude. He goes, I want you to come back on Monday and build a server for me and install NetWare. And if you get it up and running, I'll hire you. Now, mind you, I was a small, very, very small time entrepreneur. And I was like, I'm just curious, what's the salary? And he told me, and I'm like, I'll see you on Monday. So I went from the interview to the bookstore, bought a book on NetWare 2.0, read 1,200 pages over the weekend, walked into the interview with the book under my arm, and built the server and got the job. And that was the beginning of my technology career. I'll fast forward a couple of weeks later when I get to the job, to the actual company where I was going to be working. And then the guy I was working with from my company realized that I didn't know anything about networking. He's like, I cannot tell the boss that you put one over on him. He goes, you seem like a smart guy. Just shut up and do everything I tell you to do, and you'll be fine in about a month. And that's how my career in networking began. So I spent 5 years as a network engineer. I ended up getting hired by the company we were consulting with, became the director of IT, got stolen away by another architectural firm, and did that, and then had a chance to go to work for a vendor, and then began my career in tech sales.
That's so wild. Did you have that feeling at the interview, or even when you came back, that panic attack? How am I going to pull this off? Or you were just in the actor mode, like just thinking you're playing a part?
It's so funny. I was in the same frame of mind I was in during airborne school in the Army, where it was like, I signed up for this extra job for $110 extra a month. And then, I'm in the airplane with this parachute strapped to my body going, maybe this wasn't the best idea. I had a very similar feeling the day I walked into that job, and I actually don't know anything about this. But I did know one thing. I knew I had above average reading comprehension. I knew I was pretty smart, and I knew I really, really wanted a career. So I really paid attention.
Mhm.
And I thank God for the guy that I had with me. His name was Juan from California. He reacted in a very surprised, but he was just very welcoming. He was like, look, you got a lot of balls and I appreciate that. He goes, so I'm just going to help you out here. And he did. And, to my credit, I studied really hard and I paid attention. I took really good notes and I learned a lot very, very quickly. Once I got exposed, though, to the sales side of it, once I got exposed to how other customers outside of the two networks that I worked in, how they were really deploying technology and how absolutely critical it was to their operations and even to just how much people enjoy their work. I had the bug and I'm like, man, I just want to be a part of this. I love solving problems. I love watching customers, not get it and then get it. And then they're excited like you are. And then when I found out how much sales reps made, I was like, man, I'm on the wrong side of this equation.
All right, all right. So now I want to unpack a couple of things. Number one, I wonder if you were crazy enough to jump out of a plane, then everything else probably seems much easier. And it's kind of crazy, but think about it, right? If you're willing to jump out of a plane. Now, did you parachute out of planes? Was that?
Oh yeah.
part of
Yeah.
it?
I was
Okay.
airborne in the Army.
So seriously, is there a thing that if you do that, then everything else in the workplace is like nothing, right?
It's funny. I remember there was the Army recruitment commercial that they used to run in the early 80s. This is the thing that hooked me. Showed the guys, standing in the plane and then they jump out the back and they're coming down to earth. The tagline was the United States Army. We do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day.
Yeah.
And that's what hooked me in. So I joined reserves when I was still in high school and did the ROTC thing and then went on active duty. But once I got to airborne school, I realized that was 100% true. I mean, the stuff that they make you do in the military, I don't care what branch you're in, it's stuff that nobody else gets to do. And once you do it, once you get up at 3 a.m. and have to run a couple of miles and be sweaty and wet and awful, getting up and going to college is the easiest thing you've ever done. Getting up and going to a 9-to-5 job is like the easiest thing you've done the last 4 years. I think there was part of that going on. It's like, hey man, I can figure this out. I mean, how hard can it be? And that's really what it was. I mean, I don't want to demystify anything in the world of technology, but if you're interested and you're reasonably intelligent, it's not that hard.
And how'd you make that segue? Because, you're a military guy and now all of a sudden you have to be this, I don't want to say schmoozy, but you're this salesperson selling tech. How does that cross over? Or is it the same mindset that, all right, I can figure this out the same way you would go to an interview and pretend you're that person?
Yeah, I
jump out
mean,
of a plane?
I always viewed it, and I had some good mentoring along the way. I always viewed my career in technology as being kind of like what Mr. Rogers used to say, always look for the helpers, right? I was a helper. I was there and I loved working, especially frontline IT, answering the phone. Hey, I can't print, going and helping somebody because you end up putting a smile on their face most of the time, unless you had to tell them, oh, I got to get a driver patch or something. And they can't work for 20 minutes and they're upset. But for the most part, it was a really, really positive experience for me. I just loved the helping and building and helping people have those light bulb moments. That's what was exciting. But then once I got into sales and I realized that, hey, I have to actually exercise different parts of my personality. Now I have to really be a good listener and I have to truly be interested in what their problem set is and then build a relationship where they'll trust me enough to weigh in on what that problem is and what some potential solutions are. And then ultimately vote with their time and money on what my recommendation is. That was a really cool realization for me. And I just was hooked. And then, paychecks are great too.
I was just going to say that it probably helps that it paid better than being in the Army, right?
Dude, I mean, I can't even imagine, well, because I watched this happen to my oldest son too, going from minimum to a 6-figure career in the span of 4 years. I don't know too many other career paths where that's possible, unless you want to sell your soul and be a lawyer.
So when you say tech sales, what do you do? How does it work?
When I first started out, I mean, tech sales was still very traditional. It varied very little from like manufacturing sales or industrial sales. We were just selling not a widget that came in a box. We were selling a diskette that came in a box, right? And went into your computer instead of into your machine on your production line. But the sales process was the same. It was a lot of relationship building. It was a lot of building trust, and finding the right person who could say yes kind of thing. Today, it's a little bit different. I mean, back when I started selling, customers didn't know anything about our solutions, and avenues for them to actually find out about our solutions were very limited. We would run ads in magazines, you would go to trade shows and talk and stuff, but there was no internet when I started in this business. So customers did not come to the party very educated. At the most, they would know about your competitor and infer you've probably got something similar. Today, it's a very, very different story, obviously. The selling process begins much, much later in the customer's consideration of solutions than it did 20 or 25 years ago. But at the end of the day, the thing that actually gets the sale done is understanding the customer's problem, being able to demonstrate a solution that works and is going to provide some value, and having the skill to build the relationships that are necessary to get a deal done. Those things I don't think will ever change, hopefully, unless our AI overlords take over sales too.
I mean, you talk about how throughout your sales career, customers or prospects have gotten more informed and more educated. How has sales had to respond? Have you seen sales professionals get more educated and informed about potential buyers or potential verticals? What's the other side of the equation look like?
As a selling profession, we've had to, along with our partners in marketing, we've had to get very, very scientific about the way we approach our jobs today. The best sales organizations out there have a ideal customer profile for every vertical market that they operate in. They've got target personas searched and built out for all of the people who are involved in the buying process in each of those ICP. They do driven market segmentation. We also have lots of near real-time or real-time signals from the marketplace in terms of intent data and tracking bits to see where people go on the web and what they're looking at and what they're talking about on LinkedIn. We've got a lot of different inputs into it today, and we really need those because, again, we're racing the customer to the decision point, right? They're over here on their track, learning all they can about all their choices and delaying the time that they take to talk to vendors, right? They don't want to talk to a vendor until they're pretty sure what their 2 or 3 choices are going to be. They've probably done their homework in terms of pricing, or at least have a ballpark. They understand how your licensing model works and everything. So they come to the party really well educated. But what we've got to do is we've got to learn as much as we can about their business, about their initiatives, about their challenges, and where they're trying to apply their resources to get to that next level. So the more we know when we walk in the door, the better we're equipped to ask the right questions that make them go, this person really understands my business. They really understand my marketplace. Okay, we'll give them, +3 for that. That's the game we're playing today, because honestly, a lot of the solutions, I'll just be honest, I mean, we compete in a very crowded space, loosely network monitoring solutions. There's a lot of niche stuff, interweaved in there, but that's the world that we play in. We all do like 80% of the same stuff, right? So how do you differentiate? Well, you differentiate by walking in the door knowing a lot about your customer and their challenges, having social proof, use cases with actual customer names that you can say, hey, this company looks and smells and tastes just like your company. They had these problems. You guys have got these problems. This is what we did for them, and this was the outcome for them. Is that compelling? Typically, that's the case. But if you're not coming to the party with that, or if you take too long to bring that into the conversation, you're probably not in a very strong position.
Monty, I know the audience is they're hearing this, but they're thinking, okay, 2 things. How do I get into tech sales?
Oh yeah.
How much money can I make in tech sales? Is there a big barrier of entry?
So tech sales today, I would say, is if you're interested in making a top tier living and having a career that demands that you be a lifelong learner and continually evolve and change and grow, then I would say professional selling is a great place to be, especially in technology. Getting into the business, you can come to the party with a 4-year degree in just about anything and probably get an interview with a software company just on the merits of how you did in college and maybe what your interests are generally. Maybe if you've had a little retail sales experience to kind of sweeten the pot. But honestly, I think the best way to get in, if you're early career, or, fresh out of school or contemplating, should I go to college or should I do something else? Becoming an SDR, a sales development representative, or a BDR, business development representative, these are entry level sales jobs that are essentially appointment setters. I hate to say that. Any SDRs that are listening, I know you hate to hear that. I'm just trying to break it down for the audience that might not be familiar
But
with
that's
that term.
fair. If that's what it is to get your foot in the door.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, what they are is they are the face of most companies today. If you're selling a SaaS solution, a subscription model, you have a core of SDRs who are answering all of your inbound inquiries. Anybody who hits a contact form or downloads something from your website, an SDR is going to reach out to them and say, "Hey, can I answer any questions? Do you have any questions for me? Would you like to talk to, one of our sales representatives or a solution engineer? Would you like to get a demo, start a trial, whatever?" That job requires no experience. It is the very definition of an entry-level job. Most companies out there treat it that way. You will make a great living right out of the gate. So consider this: if you're 18 or 19 or 20 years old, maybe you're doing the community college thing and you're contemplating, what are my job options? Where else can you go get a $40,000 to $60,000 base salary with a comp plan that'll pay you a six-figure salary if you do the basic minimum of the job? If you can set 5 meetings a week for your sales rep, you can make between $85,000 and $100,000 at just about any software company in America as an SDR or BDR. I don't know too many other entry-level jobs that are work remote, working with tech all day, great benefits, stock options, and the prospect of making 80 to 100 grand without a college degree. That's the world that's out there today in technology sales. And from there, you can go to so many other places inside of an organization. You could go into marketing, you can go to product marketing, you can go to solution engineering, you can go to sales, you can go to customer success, you can go to events. I've seen SDRs go to all of those places from my team over the last 10 years. You can even be an introvert, but as long as you can turn it on when somebody answers the phone, you can be really, really successful in this. And most organizations today treat SDRs really, really well. They have career paths mapped out for them from day one. So, hey, if I'm successful in 18 or 24 months in this role, I can get promoted into one of these other places. And all I've got to do is X, Y, and Z to get there. Right. And I can continue to make money. Oh, and I have an uncapped earning potential, because if I want to set more than 5 meetings a week, I can make a whole lot more money and get to that sales rep job or that next job that much faster. That's my advertisement for how to get in sales.
That's a good, seriously, that
Yeah.
sounds great for a lot of people, especially young people who are having a hard time finding a job and finding a career, whether you do have a college degree or don't.
On that thread a bit, what's
Mhm.
next after you get that entry level role, that BDR,
Yeah.
SDR role? What's that typical career ladder look like in tech sales?
Sure. There's really kind of three pathways that people go once they've gotten their feet wet in sales. You either continue on the sales path and then you progress as you would expect to maybe your frontline sales manager, senior sales rep with a bigger territory, yada, yada, then to a director, VP, and on. That's one path. Another path is what I call, the Excalibur rep, which is somebody who is just going to be an individual contributor pretty much their whole career, but they're going to crush it from like year 2 or 3, and they're always going to be at President's Club and they're always overachieving. And they're kind of like the thing that everybody aims for, right? But he's never going to be a leader because he just doesn't have the DNA or the desire, quite frankly, to take on that responsibility. So you just let that person do their thing. And as long as they're following the processes and being a good exemplar, they can stick around. Now, I've had people like that weren't that were just complete mavericks and didn't help when it came to rigor and accountability and following process and stuff. And, they had to be invited to leave. But that's another path. And the third path is consultant. You find a lot of them on LinkedIn, people who had 1 or 2 years of really good selling and then went to back-to-back startup failures. And then it's like, oh, I'm a consultant now. Or they legitimately join a consultancy and take their sales career in that direction. I did that for about 8 years in my career, both as an independent consultant and working for a couple of companies. And that was really interesting because I got to see, as a professional seller, how selling was done in a bunch of different companies. Right? So now I wasn't looking at customer environments in order to sell my solution. I was looking at how are they solving the problem of sales and taking all of that in and using it with other customers. And that's where my career leapfrogged some of my peers. When I did about 5 years of that, I knew exactly what had a propensity to break or not work inside of a sales. I knew exactly what certain industries expected from a sales process. So I was able to walk into an organization and either fix what was broken very quickly or identify the stuff that was operating, at full power and go in that direction. And that really helps. So those are kind of the three things, learn to lead, be an Excalibur, or be a consultant, or leave altogether. And go teach surfing.
Is it possible for an contributor to earn more money than their managers if they're really good at sales and really good at business development? Does that take place?
Oh, all the time. I mean, you can talk to any sales leader, certainly in tech, but probably anywhere, industrial sales, doesn't matter. Your best salespeople, your 100% plus people are the highest paid people in the company, maybe with the exception of a CEO and a Fortune 500. But I know for a fact when I was at AT&T, a sales rep who owned American Express globally made as much money take home as our CEO did.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because if they're the rainmaker and they're bringing it in, that person, right, has a lot of clout and a lot of power because they're able to generate the revenue.
Well, consider this. I mean, so an account that spends more than $1 billion with your company, would you pay your sales rep $10 million a year to take care of that account and make sure that account doesn't go anywhere? Is that worth it?
Right.
That's couch cushion money when you look at it at that scale,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I'm talking about. It is very, very typical, even at more reasonable levels, that your sales reps, great sales reps, are usually the highest paid people in most organizations. And that's as it should be. Think about how many people a sales rep that brings in 10x their quota feeds. They'd probably feed a quarter of the company with their individual effort. Well, the team effort that they quarterback. Let's put it that way.
This episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly is brought to you by BetterHelp. For anyone out there who needs to hear this, you are more than your job. Don't get us wrong. Passion for your work is great, but it's so important to find joy, fulfillment, and validation in your life as a whole, not just at work. And therapy can help you get there. We all go through ups and downs in our career. Maybe you're thinking about switching career paths, or you're feeling super burned out in your job. You might be struggling with the uncertainty of our current economy, or trying to manage the anxiety that can come up during the job interview process. Whatever it is, you're not alone, and therapy can help. Therapy gives you a place to talk through what's going on at work in a safe and supportive environment, figure out what goals you have for your life and career, and build the confidence to go out and make them happen. Otherwise, it's easy to stick at the same old, even if it's not making you happy. If you're interested in giving therapy a try, BetterHelp offers affordable online therapy on a flexible week-to-week schedule so you can fit it into your day. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get started, then BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist based on your needs, preferences, and goals. Connect with your therapist by text, phone, or video call. Start the process in minutes and switch therapists anytime. Elevate your work and your life with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/teamblind for 20% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/TEAMBLIND for 20% off your first month. I mean, how does someone get up to that level where you're hitting your quota regularly? How do you land those bigger accounts or those, hotter industries?
The sales reps that I've seen in my career who were really outstanding, they were good at two things. They were exceptional listeners and they were creative problem solvers. In both of those things, you have to have some other traits that are very, very strong in order to get that effect. The good listener, you have to be genuinely intellectually curious. You got to actually want to know what's at the bottom, what's at the root of that problem that you're having, and actually use your brain power to try to figure out how can I help fix this thing, given my toolkit that I've got here, the stuff that I sell. If you're that kind of person, then I think you can overachieve, because that's a key part of consistently winning. And if you consistently win, the Hall of Fame, batting average is what, about 380, 400, right? So if you're batting 380, 100 as a sales rep, you are a superstar. If you're batting 500, you're a legend, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. If you can get to that, you can do really well. And then that other side is, just being a good creative problem solver. You have to really understand your customer's business, and you have to really understand your solution inside and out, and be able to put two and two together quickly, and express it to the customer and get them to understand it. I always say it's part art and it's part science. There's a little artistry that just comes with your personality and your life experience that you just got to have. And if you have that, it can make up for some deficiencies on the other side of the coin, which is, you got to know your stuff. You got to be kind of smart, and that doesn't mean you need to be book smart. You just need to be like, put two and two together smart.
I like what you're saying, because I think a lot of times when people hear sales, first of all, they have this ick factor. Sales, I don't want to be, they don't realize how important it is and how much money you can make doing it. And then they think of salespeople as these, like, they're just going to keep talking and talking and selling them. Whereas what you pointed out, which I see, is kind of analogous. I'm a recruiter. I've been doing this for 20 years. I listen way more than I talk. Because as you were pointing out, is that you have to actively listen to your client to really understand what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their problems. And in my experience, it's like, how do I find that right person to deliver you? Instead of software, I'm delivering a person, who you're going to hire to fit what they have that need. So I think it's such a and it drives me crazy because it's such a misunderstood thing where you have vision of, oh, you're a salesperson, whatever it is. But you don't realize it takes, you have to be really smart. You have to be really, as you put exactly what you're saying, really interested, really intellectually curious, be an active listener, and be able to be a problem solver. It's not easy to do, right? It's quite hard. But then
I would agree.
It's the more you do it, though, then you get better and better, because now you've done this so many times, you see what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah. And what you're pointing out there is what I call the science side of it, right? The artistry is the things that you have collected or innate in your personality and makeup. But the science side is you can learn to do this. If you're truly interested, you can learn to do this. Just take a look at some of the masterclass content that's out there, like around negotiation. You get like an FBI hostage negotiator teaching you how to negotiate. Okay, that's actual science. And there are parts of that you can actually deploy and use in this profession. I want to speak to what you brought up, which is most people have a very negative attitude or connotation around when you say, I'm a sales rep or I'm a salesperson or I'm a sales professional. Because when you think about it, most people, their interactions with salespeople in a consequential way where you're actually spending real money are usually not great. Think about it. When you buy a mattress, that's a big purchase. You're going to a mattress store and you're dealing with a mattress salesperson. That is never going to be a good experience because they are not professional salespeople. They're poorly trained, if trained at all, and they're poorly incentivized, okay? And they're selling something that is a commodity, but they try to dress it up like it's not. So that's hard. Cars. We spend a lot of money on cars, okay? Now, there are some, I will be honest, there are some car dealerships, the one I deal with, their salespeople are extraordinarily highly trained. In fact, everybody in their facility, even the people that work at the little Starbucks that's in there, they're highly trained and they have one mission, and that's to make people feel good. That is usually not the case when you walk onto a car lot. They're poorly trained, they're poorly incentivized. When you buy a house, that's usually the biggest purchase most people make. Now, realtors are generally decently trained, but they are ultimately poorly incentivized. They're not working for you, right? They're working for themselves. So it's going to be a very challenging brand. That's not what we do in technology sales. Most of us, vast majority of us, occasionally some people slip through the filters that are a little bit smarmy and make people feel gross with the way they sell. But those people usually work themselves out of a job pretty quickly in this business, especially now that the millennials are in charge. And I don't like to play, generational politics here, but there are some differences. And one of the great differences with the millennials is that they have very high emotional intelligence, and they don't let bad behavior persist typically in a company. Bad behavior, like bad sales reps, people who treat customers poorly. They don't stick around very long.
Do you have any advice for people that are into sales or they're in sales already and they just feel like, man, I just have a terrible product, or I'm not able to book these meetings, or I can't seem to hit quota. What are the underlying factors in your experience lead to that result or that situation? And how can someone get out of that situation?
Most people enter the sales career field with a very wide open attitude about what they want to sell, right? They just want to get a job selling something. But let's be honest, everybody has their preferences and their interests, right? Like, for example, I would not at all be interested in selling certain products because I don't participate in the activities that those products are related to, or you know what I mean? I just have no affinity for that thing. Like, I could never sell bot machines. I get physically ill when I go to Las Vegas because the whole idea of throwing your money away for I don't know what, it literally hurts my body. So I could never sell that technology or be associated with anything to do with gambling. I just couldn't do it personally, and there are other things like that. You need to check yourself, right? When you get into your first job, look at the thing you're selling and say, do I believe in this thing? If I don't believe in it, you can't sell it effectively. You just can't, right? So you need to find things that align with your worldview, your personality, your preferences, your belief system, and get excited about those things. Whatever it is that you're selling, you have to genuinely believe that it does the thing that you're telling people it does, that it's going to deliver the value, whatever that is. If it's not true or you don't believe it, you're not going to be good at it. And if you are good at it, you're going to hate yourself for being good at it because you're selling something you don't believe in. That, frankly, I think that's worse, honestly, because self-loathing is not something you want to experience.
And you can't do that for long. After a while,
You can't.
You can't do it. It's just not going to work out.
And this is a job, I mean, I talk a lot about the good stuff, but this is a hard job. I don't want to blow smoke up anybody here. It's a demanding job. It requires, again, constant study, constant change, a lot of attention to detail. You got to be a really good listener, and you also got to be a really good note taker. Now we have tools that help us with that, thank God, today, but you still have to be very good at juggling a lot of things at once and have kind of a servant mentality where, I'm here to just kind of quarterback information, right? And everybody who's around me that's helping in this process doesn't work for me because they don't, but they're my peers. And if we're going to win, we've all got to be on the same team together. And I'm the quarterback, and if you can handle that, you'll do really, really well. Some people can't, and that's fair. But they typically, once they get in and they find, like maybe in their second sales job, that this isn't right for me, they've been exposed to enough of the other jobs inside of an organization where they can maneuver their way into the right fit for them. And that's why I think sales is still a great entry point, because you get exposed to so many other parts of the organization because of the job that you have, where again, you're quarterbacking lots of different resources. So you have direct, heavy interaction with lots of parts of the organization you work for. And that's a real asset.
Now, do you find that the most successful salespeople are folks that specialize in a given industry? They are the network telecoms guy, or, she is the expert in financial services or crypto or that kind of line of business? Or is there something more to the underlying arts and science foundation that can really apply across the board, where, if you're successful, you're just successful anywhere?
I've seen both, honestly. And I think it has more to do with personal choices and opportunities given than it does any conscious, plan that anybody might have. So for example, myself, I've sold a lot of different solutions to a lot of different industry verticals in a lot of different ways. I've worked direct sales, channel sales, partner development, alliances. I've done it at the local and the country level. But some people, I work with a bunch of sales reps today at Kentik who have been networkers as engineers, actual like running a network operations center somewhere. And then they went to work as a solution engineer at a vendor, kind of like I did, and then eventually worked themselves into network technology sales. And that's where they've stuck, because that's their thing, man, that they love it. And they know the people, and it's kind of a closed universe, in terms of technology and people. And they thrive in that environment. So I think it really depends on the person. But that point behind all of it is, the beautiful thing is, in the world of technology, both of those things are possible for lots and lots of people. You can have a great career where you sell 20 different solutions across 20 different companies. That's great. I've kind of done that and I've loved it because I honestly think I would have gotten bored if I was still at BMC from 2000, selling network monitoring solutions. I mean, I've kind of come full circle after all this time.
It's so curious. Like, Rick, I haven't noticed, let's say on the Blind platform, where a lot of people are representing themselves as tech salespeople, which is surprising. But and then I'm thinking too, on LinkedIn and Twitter, you don't see that as well. So is there a reason you think that like they're not out there saying, "Hey, I'm a tech salesperson," and they just keep it kind of quiet?
I wonder if it's just the difference in terms of what the professional networks or the social network most used for. I think one of the things that I see a lot on LinkedIn, especially my friends on the sales business revenue side, is there's this pressure to have like almost a perfect profile. They're on LinkedIn all the time. They're reaching out. They're sending a direct message. Everything is a bit manicured, right? Where it's how do I make sure that the CTO or the champion that I'm reaching out to can respect me, right? And they almost have to almost put on a mask or a persona of
Mm.
what they believe or what they think fits that world. Whereas on Blind, it's anonymous. There's, no fancy internet points. There's no profile. And you could just ask stupid questions if you want, right? Or you can be a little aggressive, right? Or try to figure out, what is the next leading company or industry that you might want to get into. I mean, Monty, do you see that experience where folks are trying to put on a mask in terms of, oh, this is what is expected of me if I'm a sales professional, and this is how I have to be and fit accordingly?
LinkedIn has kind of become the most beautiful beach in the world with a shark problem. People still go there in droves. They still swim in the water, but you're always a little bit nervous about what's swimming around your legs, man. and you're for sure jumpy. That's the way I am in LinkedIn today. I mean, I recognize that 50% of what my eyeballs are seeing is construct. It's just paper mache. Doesn't mean anything, has no value to me. It's just somebody's branding attempt or whatever. Another 25% is stuff I'm just not interested in. It's Tony Robbins ads and stuff, which I'm really starting to have a really negative attitude about it.
You do see
Yeah,
that a lot.
LinkedIn is just, it's becoming a cesspool, kind of like Twitter was a couple of years ago before it, became the actual cesspool. But it still has some tremendous value because there's still great information that's being put on there. I mean, there's great articles being written. There's some really good commentary that who are actually knowledgeable and worth your time to read, do share their insights there. So it still functions in that regard. It's also a great place for connecting. It's still probably the best town hall for people who provide solutions and people who need solutions to kind of find a way to have a meeting of the minds. And it's still pretty tame in that regard. People still are on their best behavior with that for the most part.
Now, is there value if you're a sales professional building that profile or building that quote unquote brand for yourself as a salesperson outside of your company on LinkedIn or these social media platforms?
I think it depends on what your goal is, right? Different people have different goals for LinkedIn. And, if you're just a sales rep in a company carrying a bag and you've got a quota and you're selling to enterprises or mid-market or whatever, you have to be on LinkedIn. It's like being a company without a website. Okay. If you are a face of your company, if you're a customer facing person in any kind of a role, you have to have a presence on LinkedIn. And it's your opportunity to just tell your story. That's what I tell, especially new hires that are never set up their LinkedIn before. Just think of it like your personal business webpage. What do you want the world to know about you as a professional? And that's the way I encourage people to use it. And that's the way I use it for the most part.
I mean, you've been a mentor throughout your entire career. Is there anything that you feel professionals in sales or otherwise just need to know to level up their career?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the mentoring because that's something I'm really privileged to get a chance to do. I have had truly exceptional mentors around me in my life, both in my career, in my personal life, in my faith life, and just absolutely a game-changing, God-sent relationship. So to the extent that you have the desire and ability to be that for someone at any stage of your life, there's always somebody younger than you, and there's always somebody older than you that you know. And you can teach somebody younger and you can learn from somebody older. Cultivate those relationships, seek them out, invest the time. There are very few things in this life that pay back 20, 50, 100 times what you invest. And that's one of them. Let me just tell you. If for no other reason, the level of satisfaction that you get from knowing you're at least providing a ear and another mind to check somebody's thoughts on something, on a particular topic or a choice that they're about to make or decision they're about to make. It's a huge privilege. The only other thing I would say about if you're contemplating a career in sales, go talk to some people. You probably have somebody in your family or your close circle who, if they aren't currently a professional salesperson, they maybe were in a past life. Get to know some people who are doing it today. Talk to them, ask questions. What's the job like? What do your Saturdays look like when you're enterprise sales rep for a software company? What's it like to travel for business? Ask those questions, because that's what everybody thinks, right? They're like, well, I get to travel and I get to do this. Well, ask questions about it. I'll tell you what it's like. Sometimes it's really awesome. Most of the time it kind of sucks, but you know what? You're going to be thrilled to do it because it's fun. It's a great career path. I strongly encourage any who's thinking about it to go check it out. And if you ever are interested in talking to an old dog, just hit me up on LinkedIn. You can find me, and I'll answer your questions.
Thanks for the wisdom and that offer, that generosity.
No, it's my pleasure. It's one of my favorite things I get to do.
That's it for The Blind Ambition. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.